I chose option number 1 for my final project. This is to answer the question, what is Irish literature and how has it evolved over time? I have chosen to show this in the form of a timeline. I am using multiple examples from our classwork to show how Irish literature has changed from verbal storytelling to modern day movies, books, and television shows. We started off the semester with Irish mythology, and this is where I will begin. Mythology is one of the oldest forms of literature. It was the first time a story was told across an entire country to teach the same lesson, not only in Ireland but around the world. I chose to use the fate of the children of Lear because I believe it is a great example of Irish mythology. The Fate of the Children of Lear is a story about a group of children that are transformed into swans by their stepmother, who is the sister of their late mother. She does this because she is jealous of the attention the children are getting from her husband. The stepmother is then punished by her husband after he finds out, and the children are not able to return to their human form until their curse has been broken many years after their family has passed away. This story is based on quote-unquote real people. Unlike other mythologies, Irish mythology did not have gods and goddesses. The Irish based their stories on real people in order to teach the lessons they wanted. This makes Irish mythology very unique and becomes a good base to start learning the history of Irish literature from this point. From mythology, we go to music. Music plays a major role in Irish literature. The Irish have historically classic and traditional songs for specific events. There are songs for everything from weddings and having a fun time to funerals and tough times. This is how the Irish have expressed their feelings for many, many years. They also use their music to tell jokes and stories and have a fun time. The Wearing of the Green is a song from the tough times. This song was written during the time period where the British were ruling over Ireland and changing the country. During this time, the Protestants were largely in charge of the country, and they discriminated against the Catholics. The chorus of this song says, "They're hanging men and women for the wearing of the green." This chorus tells how much discrimination the Catholics went through, so much that they could literally be killed for wearing the wrong color. This song is an example of the longing the Irish had for being themselves again, and the hardships they lived through. The Necessity of De-Anglicizing the Irish Nation is by Douglas Hyde and is my next example. At the time this article was written, the British were getting a big hold on Ireland. Gaelic was being taught less and less, and the Irish were really losing touch with themselves. Hyde noticed this and began to make a change. This was his first step in doing so. Hyde wrote an article that sparked the Irish literary revival. In his article, Hyde describes how the British are taking over Ireland and how Ireland is changing. He specifically calls out the Irish who are giving up their ways to be looked at as British. He says these people are the worst of all, saying that they do this without thought or hesitation. In Hyde's article, he states that the Irish don't believe their literature is important enough. Hyde later states that Irish literature is very important and gives the example that scholars from other countries who speak other languages are studying Irish literature. This article is a great example of how Irish literature was changing at the time, as it caused so many Irish citizens to change their mind on the situation they were in, as well as brought awareness to the importance of Irish literature itself. After this article, Hyde went on to become a senator and began to make changes. One of those changes was that Gaelic must be taught in all Irish schools. Hyde's article sparked a revival in an almost dead literature. Movies have also made their way into Irish literature in the more recent years. Some of these movies, such as Dancing at Lughnasadh, are used to tell the history of Ireland and what it was like to live during that time. Dancing at Lughnasadh is a movie set in the time period where Ireland as a whole was trying to find its new identity. The British no longer ruled the Irish, but they had ruled for so long that Ireland forgot who it was. In this movie, you can see the eldest sister is very stuck in her British ways, and this is not her fault. This is how she grew up under British rule, and it is all she knows. The younger sisters were also raised this way, but they want to have fun and find who they truly are. This is a representation of Ireland as a country on a very small scale. The eldest sister is representing the Irish who are resistant to the change, and the younger sisters are representing the rest of Ireland. This movie is an example of how Irish literature has changed in a more recent time, as it now includes movies and television shows as it has adapted to the times and modern technologies. Paddy Clark Ha 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 is an example of when the Irish began to write about their current issues and stories. These stories, while some of them may be fictional, are based on current issues in the country at the time the story was written. This was another way for the Irish to put their feelings out there, as well as bring awareness to the issues at hand that people may not be aware of. Paddy is the main character in this book and was abused by his father whether he knew it or not. The effects of this can be seen in his behavior. Paddy is a misbehaved child who uses vulgar language for fun games, is overly aggressive with his friends, and he himself is abusive. This story shows a very common scene in Irish culture. A child is abused and therefore is abusive themselves. This is an endless cycle in most of the country, but at the end of this story, after Paddy's father has left the family and Paddy was forced to grow up and become the man of the house, Paddy swears he will never be like his father. This book is an example of how Irish literature has changed from telling a history of Ireland to bringing awareness to current issues the Irish are experiencing. The Gathering, yet again, shows the abusive side of Ireland. This time, however, the main character is an adult whose name is Veronica. Veronica's brother Liam was the closest to her of all of her siblings. Liam was sexually abused as a child by the landlord of the children's grandmother. Sexual abuse of children is also common in Ireland, and this book is bringing attention to it. Veronica's brother commits suicide because of the PTSD he had obtained from these experiences. Veronica must identify her brother's body and begin the process of bringing him back to Ireland. This causes Veronica to unravel her own memories and trauma relating to the incident where she caught the landlord abusing her brother. Sexual abuse, especially of children, is not something a lot of people like to talk about, but this book puts a spotlight on it. With these examples, you can see how Irish literature has changed and yet, at the same time, stayed the same. It started out with mythology, where the Irish told stories to teach lessons. Now Irish literature uses books, movies, music, and television shows to get the same outcome. The point of Irish literature always has been and always will be to teach. That being said, the lessons the literature is teaching and the form of the literature itself have evolved over time, from verbal stories to modern day technology.